I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gonna be biblical.
Hello and welcome to Patriots Across the Pond and Friends. We are at episode 52 and we're so happy to be welcoming today Dr. Scott Young. How are you? Hey Stu,
All right.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
Good. It's good to see you.
Good. Well, I know that probably I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most of our viewers are very familiar with you, but I'm going to just give just the very quick intro and then you can fill in any gaps here. But Dr. Scott is a practicing audiologist, business owner for 34 years, has been a World War II researcher since he was a child. He writes fiction, mostly historical fiction and nonfiction. NESARA, now I'm going to butcher this word. Is it eschatology?
Perfect.
And apologetics alike, with 18 books to his credit. He has a vibrant YouTube, Telegram, and Twitter channel with more than 20 to 67,000 members per avenue. There's so much on your bio. You've done so much. We see you all over. Can you expand on some of that and how you really got into this movement?
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, I just did my 19th book. This is the newest book called Tribulation. So this is a hardcover book. That's the first time I did a hardcover book, and it is a pain in the butt to do a hardcover book. I mean, I've done the soft covers, which are super easy comparatively, because you have the templates on Amazon are super easy comparatively, and I've learned all that. But the hardcovers are a pain in the butt. And we did the hardcovers, and then we're redesigning the hardcover out, the shell of it a little bit more. So we're gonna be changing it a little bit as we go. But so that's some of the stuff that we do. And you were asking about. Tell me again. I'm sorry, you're saying.
Oh no, I was just saying, how did you kind of get into this whole movement? We all sort of have our awakening story, even if it goes back. But how did you kind of get into all this?
Like I always kind of say that, I've when I study something, I go, down to the core. I don't study things just a little bit. The word veritas is a Greek word. Project Veritas, takes it, but veritas means that you need to verify. As my scientific background means that you verify what you mean. Okay. So when you go down the rabbit hole, in essence, and good conspiracy theorists do that, but actually good scientists do that. And we've seen this, unfortunately, throughout the supposed scientific community. They don't do this very well. We're seeing this nowadays in the scientific community. They take a supposed scientific study and then they pull it out and then they go, well, that doesn't really work. And what's called is if you have a theorem, what it's supposed to do, and if it comes out wrong, it's called the null. And so you would take that theorem and say, well, it was a null. And what you're supposed to do is redesign the whole thing and say, I got a null theorem. And so that's a wrong kind of concept. And you're supposed to stop, redesign the thing from scratch, and start again. And that has really been something that I've been doing for a long time. But what these people do, unfortunately, is that they pull back and then they only go to the smallest little detail. So, for instance, like the mask studies have gone off and said, "Oh, we're going to find the littlest way of doing it, and then push it out there as if it's the only way that it should actually be." Right. And we've seen these kind of idiotic approaches.
Right.
But what I do is I go super, super deep. And what I would do is, like, I would study, the JFK files, and I would go study that one and say, it doesn't make any sense. And then I started to, deal with, my own business that was failing dramatically. And as I was, trying to deal with the business, specifically in 2009, I was in massive debt. And there was this guy that kind of came alongside of me. Some people have heard some of the story with us, and he came alongside of me, and he was starting to push me, and he would say, research this, like the blockchain. And I'm like, why am I researching this dumb thing? And because what he was into is he was talking about the dragon family. He was meeting with people in Tucson and different areas that I can't even tell you about. And what he was talking to is he was 1 or 2 phone calls away from Trump. And frankly, in 2013, he was talking about Trump being in the White House. And I'm like, I sort of knew who Trump was. And I'm like, isn't that the guy that says you're fired? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It didn't make any sense. In 2011, we were designing a whole ministry / business that would have no taxes in there. I didn't get it. And this is this kind of way we were doing crazy kinds of things that were pre-NESARA things that I had no idea what I was talking about, no idea what I was doing. And I wasn't talking to anyone about this stuff. And we were talking about bringing in monies that were going to be able to push forward, this ministry. We were even talking about ways that were before the Constitution, that were just concepts that I can't even really get into. I have to be really kind of careful about this. And so what happens is that this kind of stuff was foundational to where we were going. So we fast forward into 2019, the business is starting to grow. We're starting, I paid off all the debts. And I have, experience that I was in Denver and, took my son to a Colorado Avalanche game. And, my wife and my son were at this game. We go back to the hotel and, I wake up one night and, I said, I don't feel very good. And it's everything they can do to take me to the hospital. And they say, he's had a severe stroke. Now, my wife is a nurse and, I'm acting psychotic, which is incredibly, it's incredibly severe. And when you have someone who's had a severe stroke, what happens is that it comes on for days. And especially when there's someone psychotic at that point, you actually know about it for hours, probably about 12 hours, but more than likely, all the signs have been coming on for a long while. And so then they're looking at did someone spike my drink? They don't believe her. They're pushing her. She's a psych nurse too, on top of this. And so they're doing all these different things in the ER, and they believe that she's either lying, she doesn't know what's happening. All this kind of stuff is happening on top of she's in massive grief that, what's occurring. And so maybe she doesn't even know what's really going on with the Sprite that I had gotten, and she had gotten it. Now they're wondering, did she really do it? Or did someone do it to me? Right? And so all this stuff is happening at the same time. Long story short is that there were 13 separate diagnoses. All of them came back negative. And that first night, I see 4 demons going on around me. I'm screaming bloody murder. Get me out of here. And, that night was very, very foundational for me. Because those demons that really, took me into a new, category with that. So I'll fast forward, but basically 3 days later, and there's videos of this and I have it on my channel. But, my wife is going, I'm just going to have to check him into a nursing home. Nothing was going to be the same. 3 days later, I'm quoting scripture to the nurse and they're all like, and I walk out of an ICU. See, you never walk out of an ICU. I am not just going to a step down unit. You always move to a step down unit and then you're out. They dismissed me from the ICU. And, I talked to a lot of people about this. I tried to get some idea of like, what did I go through from NDE people, like, near-death experience. And they were going, yeah, that's a near-death experience. And this happened in December of 2020 or 2019. Well, most people know that was during COVID timeframe or pre-COVID kind of timeframe. Now, if it was COVID timeframe, they would just given me remdesivir and let me die.
Yeah.
But God had another purpose with that. And so, that kind of thing, I keep telling people, I'm not the same person, before versus after. And so that kind of thing happened. God had a purpose for me to stay alive. And so as, the March thing of March of 2020 starts occurring and everyone's kind of getting an idea of what's going on, that, started to happen. My, Twitter starts occurring. What actually is occurring in the world stages as, COVID starts happening, Trump's going through his thing, the summer of love is happening in Minnesota. And by the way, I go to Minnesota probably 3 or 4 times a year because there are audiology or ear-based things that are going on up there. So I have lots of friends up there. And it was distressing me quite a bit that there were some things going on up there. And, so I'm getting canceled every 5 seconds on Twitter. So I would have, 14,000 followers. It would go, it would go up 1,000. The next day it would go down by 2,000. It'd go up by 1,000, down by 2,000, up by 1,000, down by 2,000. And what would happen is people would check mark me and then it would be uncheck marked. Now I was never canceled off the network, but it would uncheck mark me left and right. And on my YouTube channel, and even happens to this day, and I say this and I still haven't figured out how to fix this, is that on my, and I can check this because I have a hearing-based channel. On my hearing-based channel, I have 10,000 subscribers. On it, when I just do a small little videos, and they don't get a lot of views. The click-through rate on my YouTube channel, that YouTube channel is 2%. Very, very normal rate, right? On my main channel, on what I call the ministry channel with that, my click-through rate is 10 to 13%. Now, either I am the most amazing person that everyone in the world wants to see. All of the coolest videos, commercials, or what YouTube is doing is stealing the views.
Right.
And so that's what they're doing. And so that just tells you a little background of some of the craziness that kind of goes on and of what happened with that. But that in that time frame, what's happened is worldwide, and this has happened to a lot of people, is that I have lawyers, congressional people, to pharmacy people all over the world who will kind of communicate with me and say that what you're talking about, Scott, is exactly right on. And so they would give me information, bankers who just say, yes, that's exactly right. So they give me information, IRS agents, everyone. So it just has kind of spurred me on just to keep getting new information.
Wow. Now I just have a question about that experience you had. What's your diagnosis of what really happened to you? What do you?
It's funny because I think it was my mom and my sister who, after I get out of the hospital, right? I'm in the hotel. And by the way, after you do that, I have a migraine to beat the band because they had taken so much CFS fluid out of my body. I mean, I have a 10-day migraine that goes on. I had to lay flat for literally 10 days because if I sat straight up, I'm, my head is just going crazy, right? So my mom, I call my mom and my sister. They're, it's Christmas time, by the way, and they were like, "Don't you want to know what's wrong?" And I can't even talk to them because they're all frantic. And so I just give my phone to my wife, and she kind of explains it a little bit more. And people always wanted to know, "Don't you want to know what's happening?" And the answer is no. I wrote a book about it. The reality is when God heals you like that, you just have to go, "Thank you, God."
Yeah.
The reality is that on the other end of the scale, I have people who just celebrate with me. When God does an amazing thing, the reality is you just have to be able to celebrate instead of stay in the past and focus on it. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
what the actual diagnosis, because as an audiologist, I actually have to put diagnoses. There's really interesting scales. There's like when you put a diagnosis code, you have to put a diagnosis code to get paid for all of the diagnostic tests that you have to do.
Right.
And if you don't put a specific diagnosis, you don't get paid on the codes. Okay. And so what they did is they put unspecified encephalopathy, which means we don't frickin' know what he had.
Yeah. And I didn't mean that like from a medical standpoint. I meant it more from like, what do we take away knowing why God put us through an experience, brought us out of it?
No idea. And the reality is that, I wrote the book and said, why I was brought back for the storm.
Yeah.
And my publisher friend, she was like, well, why don't we brought back, I was like, no, I was brought back for the storm. I was brought back, for this experience, even though it's been one of the most difficult time frames for all of us. I was brought back for this time frame. I should be dead. And so I'm all right with every day that I'm here, but I also know that I'm not scared of death. That's the other thing. So a lot of people are terrified of their death. I'm not terrified of death even a little bit. Wow. That's one thing. I'm just super not terrified of death. I mean, of course, I'm scared to the physical point of the pain of death.
Right.
No one isn't, but I'm not scared to die. I know where I'm going to go, but I'm not scared of death at all.
I think that's the difference with a lot of people in this awakening movement, that we have all overcome that fear. And none of us are afraid of death anymore, which is why we do what we do. And when you lose your fear of dying, you start to live.
Yeah.
Right. It calms you. It moves you into a different place. And so that's one of the reasons why I've been able to move forward. And so I get people who threaten me, and I mean, truly do threaten me all the time. And, listen, I'll be armed, anytime I go. So I'm not worried about that kind of stuff too. But even still, I've always been like, when I walk through this has been all the way through, even when I had a wife and a son. If you watch me when I'm in a parking lot and someone wants to drive really fast, I will give you the Scott stare. And the cars won't, cars will stop when Scott gives the stare. Because, they just do not come. And Wendy's like, why are you doing that? Like, because you're coming with my wife and my little kid, and I'm going to give you the death stare. So, anyway, so it's just a different conversation. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
Good. Anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No, but that's all right. Well, obviously now you talk a lot of financial stuff, and one of the things you talk about the most is NESARA. Now, there's still a lot of people out there that go, oh, that's not right and it's not real. But a lot of us, we've been looking into this for years. I believe there's two different NESARAs because potentially the Bushes tried to do one on the dark side, whatever. But we believe that what we've seen, whether it's going to be called NESARA, GESARA, Trump-SARA, or something like that, we believe that we've seen it. With DOGE and the IRS chatter and no tax on tips. It's being implemented very, very slowly. But we do believe we'll be coming up to some big announcement. So do you want to really clue us up on that?
So, the NESARA thing is incredibly huge. It's a huge point that we have to say. I always kind of say, and some people get really sideways. like Juan O'Savin gets incredibly sideways with the concept because he doesn't actually believe it, and that's okay. I've talked to a lot of people about it, and here's how I kind of get into this. And I've talked to many people about this, and I say, well, do you believe that we should end the Fed? And they go, well, yeah. Do you believe that we should end the IRS? Yeah. Do you believe in election fraud? Yeah. There you go. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying? So, yeah. So if you kind of go, so here's how I kind of put it. Election fraud has to be dealt with. Number one. Number two, we have to end the Fed. When we end the Fed, what we're talking about is ending the Fed. And what it does is that when we end the Fed, what we're doing is we're turning off the Federal Reserve. Okay? When we turn off the Federal Reserve, we're turning off what's called the SWIFT system. And people go, I don't know what that means. Okay, so let me tell you just briefly what that does. What it does is it turns off the routing numbers on your checking accounts. Okay. Now the routing numbers are available in every country, by the way. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It's called the SWIFT system. Okay. And again, all central banks are all connected. So I don't care if you're in the Central Bank of Iraq, or you're in the Central Bank of England, or you're in America, they're all connected. And by the way, Scott Bessent of Treasury gave a clue of this, that back in March, they had planned, March of 2025, they had planned to turn off the dollar in Iran. And they were like, wait a second, how can you turn off the dollar in Iran when they use the real? And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. What he's talking about is taking the dollar or the SWIFT system and turning off the real. Now, we knew sometime in November, what they did is they turned off the real's monetary source, and we knew it from the EU to the real. They basically dumped the real's monetary ability. So they did it in a really quick way. And right around that time frame in early December, all of the people around in Baghdad, they started running out in the streets, and that's when all the Ayatollah started killing all the people. So that's what it means, is to end the Fed. So when we do, what we're doing is we're cutting off the SWIFT system. And what we do is then we flip over to the Treasury. And when we do that, what we're talking about is going into an asset-backed currency. Okay. Number 3, when we do that, we're also moving out of the IRS. And Trump has been talking about this over and over again. What that means is going into like the ERS, or an external revenue service. Now, I always thought that that meant like having a sales tax or a federal sales tax. Now, it might have a little federal sales tax, but what we're finding out is he had a better idea. It's called tariffs. Mm-hmm. Okay. So and what we're learning that I didn't have a clue about, this is the Scott ignorance, is that, and we have this kid named Nick Shirley, who a 24-year-old kid has shown that, has shown us, and with a little bit of research, we're finding out that 90% of the monies that is given out to the states in the union, 90% of all the monies that comes from the IRS to the states is fraud. And you go, wait, what? That means that all we have to live on is the 10% that would come in because of tariffs. Let's translate that over in the UK. The monies that they take in because of income tax doesn't need to come in because of income tax. They can bring it in by a sales tax and by a fiat, or by any kind of tariffs or excise taxes as well. So they don't need to be able to hurt the people as well. Okay, so that's the third point. So when we have those 3 main points, then we also have to, at the same time, we have to take out the cabal. Okay, so instead of like, I don't know, people want to get like, I hate America, or I hate Israel. Let's stop hating on a country or a people. Okay, I hate the top of the group of people. Okay, let's say I hate all these, some people have said that it's a couple million of these these sickos up at the top. And so what we need to do is take out the top rung of these ones. And why? How do we do that? It's through executive orders that Trump has set up, like Executive Order 13818. These people are all child traffickers. And so that's a portion of it. Mm-hmm. And so once we have those kinds of things, and we have that portion of it, we see, and that is the whole umbrella of the NESARA point. And so what that does is that we start seeing the freeing of the people of the world. And they start to say, there's this thing of a sovereignty that, for instance, and I just use this as a point of reference, is Canada. Canada needs to be sovereign by herself. And people go, well, they need to be a part of America. And I'm going, yeah, maybe, but how about Canada just for once in her history? Instead of being a part of America, can't she just not be a part of anyone? I mean, and just hear me out for a second. Canada has been controlled by Britain, then been controlled by America in different ways. Can't Canada just be herself for one time? How about Australia? Australia was a prison planet. I mean, in essence, a prison planet, right? Or what about Ghana or Uganda or any other of these places? Can't they just be by themselves without anyone else infecting them, without the CIA running in there and trying to like mess with them? And that's what we're finding is the capability of no one else bugging me. Like, can't we just have a white picket fence around me and I can live alone and go to work and do my thing without anyone messing with me, kind of thing? And I think that's what we're going to start finding is this sovereignty with borders and capability of going to work and doing my own thing. So that's what we're going to start finding in that kind of way.
Yeah. What do you think quickly about, because we heard in maybe 2020 that Trump had merged the Fed into the Treasury, and also we're hearing now that Trump is sort of loading the Fed up with debt in a process to crash it, to take it down?
Well, I would say we're not going to load the Fed in the Treasury. I think what we're going to do is the previous point you're saying. We're going to take the debt and we're going to shove the debt on the Treasury. Excuse me. We're going to shove the debt down the throat of the Fed, just like we would do in bankruptcy. And this is one of the things that really messed me up. Is Executive Order 13818 didn't make any sense. It basically said that that we're going to block the property of those who did these child trafficking points, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? I don't get it. I mean, like, how do you block the property? It doesn't make any sense. Basically, what that means is bankruptcy. Right. So when you bankruptcy an organization, okay, let's just say Stu has an organization, okay? And so what we do with the bankruptcy is that, and we're not talking about bankruptcy, there's two different types of bankruptcy.
Right. We're not talking about reorganization.
Yeah, we're not talking about reorganization.
We're talking about 7. Yeah.
We're talking about 7. So we're going to shove it, in a hole. So we're going to take it, we're going to shove it down their throat. And so no one's going to be able to collect on it, right? So we're going to seven it and we're going to shove it in a hole. And so no one's going to pay it, okay? So, and because all of the bankers, the 13 Fed banks, they're going to be reorganized. So we're not going to close the Chase banks down. But they're going to be, all of the top of the Fed banks are going to be knocked down to a very small ability. The people, they're not going to lose their money in there. The people are not going to lose the money, but they're going to be like knocked down a heavy peg.
So you're basically saying they're going to keep the infrastructure
of the Fed, of the Fed banks, but the Fed is going to go away. So for instance, and Trump actually said this. He said, I don't know that the new guy, Kevin, I blank his name out, is even going to occupy the Fed building, which means he's not even going to do anything. So in essence, we're going to shove him off the Empire State Building, and there's not even going to exist, which also means that every single central bank is just going to be like they're the top bank of that nation.
Okay. Yeah. Warsh. Kevin Warsh.
Yeah. But just say EO 13848 as well. It's the same sort of thing, really, isn't it? But that's all to do with election interference. So, I mean, this encompasses basically everyone worldwide, all these members of the cabal that have had their fingers in these pies. Yeah, well, and we believe as well, sorry, Elisa, that potentially what Trump's doing with his tariffs is a bit of a cover for the confiscation of all the wealth of these cabal members coming through these executive orders to as an excuse. Oh, we got so much money through the tariffs to maybe start putting it back out into the people.
Yeah, but it's going to be really kind of cool. But let's give an example of how it actually is really good. So let's just use, for instance, BMW. Okay, so BMW, and so let's say you're German. Okay, so you've been making a killing off of America because in the reverse, you've been making these opposite tariffs. In essence, you've been charging America tariffs by buying your cars. But America is the one normally buying most of the cars compared to Europeans buying the cars. Okay. So, and this is the ridiculous part, America, you need America buying your cars. So what happens now is that he's got all the leverage, which America's always had the leverage. So now America is requiring, but they're not requiring, but they're basically saying BMW is now moving and going to build a $4 billion plant. I don't remember where, but somewhere in America. Mm-hmm. So they're going to build a $4 billion plant. So that's just to get away from having tariffs. Okay, so that's good for America. Now, let's just say you're a German citizen. So you're going, how is this going to be good for us? Well, it's good for you because you're going to make the money as a German citizen. So you're going to have the capability to be able to make the money because it's good for you as a company, because you're going to make money off of that. So it's still good for you because that's income for your company through through the German capability. So it's a win-win-win. It's always good in that way.
Yeah. And kind of going back to the whole NESARA thing, when you said, like, obviously there's the first, I want to say, tier of sort of dismantling and restructuring and moving us out of SWIFT and, into this treasury system. But then, further, like, look at the rest, like, who doesn't want world peace, right? Who doesn't want 6,000 plus patents that are going to help us live better lives and be healthier and, thrive, right? So if you look at everything, and of course we know, it came out of the farmers lawsuit and claim, right? There's nothing on there that doesn't really somehow relate to a lot of the things that we've been seeing, right? So like Stu said, it doesn't matter what they call it. It doesn't matter if they come out and say this name.
Which I totally believe they're never going to say it.
I don't think they're going to come out and they go, hey guys, and they're going to give a little press conference. I don't see that ever happening. Right. But if we do the 40,000 foot view, we do now going back, and then another few years, then going back, we're going to go, it's all implemented.
Because here's what actually Trump has done. He's actually talked about farmers more than any other group ever.
Yes.
And you go, why hasn't he talked about, I've always said, why hasn't he talked about pipe fitters? He doesn't hate pipe fitters, okay? But why has he talked about farmers? And by the way, I've spent a lot of time with Northern Colorado farmers, and I didn't realize until a lot later that I've interacted with many of the NESARA farmers who were involved with this NESARA thing. So I actually have a ton of ties with them, and I can't explain how I have ties with them. So God has been setting me up for this NESARA thing in a whole bunch of different weirder ways that I can explain. So that's the stranger part of that, the longer story for me.
Well, the other interesting thing is, and I don't remember what month it was. I do know there was snow outside, here in New York. There was one of Trump's rallies where across the bottom, it did say NESARA. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
It was very just, and anybody who, picked it up, obviously the average person isn't going to really probably pick it up, but they've been telling us, you know, and you just have to have a keen eye and discernment to be able to connect those dots. Obviously, someone like yourself might be a little closer, but for us who watch all this, it just seems so obvious, you know. Yeah.
But I think there's so many little points that we have to do. But you know, I keep going back to constitutionality. You know, I did a huge deep dive on you know, constitutionality. Howard Lutnick actually talked about. He made there's a 10-second statement that he said. That he made a statement of from 1871 to 1913. And he said that they talk about it all the time in their or their round tables. And I'm like, why would he talk about that? Well, in 1870 was the corporation change. Now, I had to go like look this up. Now there's some cute videos that talk about the 1870 corporational change. And then I had to look at every single statement on 1870. And I mean every single change in Congress, because it was hidden in there. And so, as I have a degree in English, and I'm sitting there reading through this thing, and it looks like something that I student taught, and it looks like something that I would have scribbled out of one kid saying "of" versus "for," and like it was like this grammatical change that I would make. And basically, how I explain it is that instead of for the people of America, it was of the people of America. It was a very strange way. So what it did is it set up pointing, instead of pointing for the people, it pointed back toward Washington, D.C. It set up the districting of D.C. And this is where they got the concept of how they were going to be the foci of this. And so from every point from, I think it was 1871, if I remember
the
right.
Organic Act.
And so when it did that, that's when the cabal was saying, we are now the corporation. And so they were changing every bit of that kind of focus. And Howard Lutnick talks about this, and that Trump talks about it too. And so that's a portion of that. And then I went back through even pre-Civil War banking, which is even crazier than that too. So those are things that are really powerful. And I mean, every time that you see people talk about democracy versus a constitutional republic, and I did a video about this like 5 years ago, and no one's even spent any time on that. And so you also hear the Democrats saying democracy, and I hear, every time I want to do that, I want to flip them off, you know, because they are talking about obviously the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's what they want us to. You know, it's interesting too, because from let's say a marketing standpoint,
Sure.
what happens when a lot of, or at least in the past, you know, when immigrants would come to this country, they would say, well, I want to be a Democrat because it's a democracy. Like there was sort of a little mind screwing to get them to see it that way.
But see, the other thing that happened, I went, you know, because I'm a historical nut, I went through my own historical nature too. Did you know that through post World War II, we were always bringing democracy to the people.
Yep.
And I was like, wait a second, what are we doing? And by the way, that's when, you know, before that time frame, we were the OSS, and after that time frame, we were the CIA.
Yes.
And I was like, wait a second, that's the split. And that's that time frame of misunderstanding. And I was talking to someone in 2021 who's a sociology professor, and I was trying to explain the concept of democracy versus constitutional republic. And she was like, "You're blowing my mind. I didn't know this. I didn't know why I was teaching it so wrong."
Wow.
And you know, I'm like, and now it's like it's all over the place. But I'm like, we have got to have. And someone says, you know, yep, a play of words. But that's that same kind of thing that we have been missing. And those are the key elements. That's why, you know, I don't talk as much on the word of NESARA because it gets too, you know, too irritating for some people, because it's like it's a trigger for some people, and they get off on it. And so I'm talking more about, you know, and the Fed and the IRS than this other kind of areas, and election fraud points.
Yeah.
That and constitutionality. For instance, the 14th Amendment, one of my favorite amendments, because inside the 14th Amendment, it actually talks about illegals or illegal immigrants. Inside of the 14th Amendment, I can actually prove how the Fed can be closed. Inside of the 14th Amendment, we can also talk about how the debts of the world are illegal. So, I mean, we can talk about a million things with that too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so two things. One, there's a lot of people in the chat, and Stu, I know you might have something to say, but they have some questions, so we're going to open it up. But I wanted to also say, before, you know, being raised, obviously, like you here in the United States, I just remembered when you were talking about the Kennedy, you know, like that whole time. And I can still remember sitting in class. I don't know if I was in the 7th or the 8th grade. And my teacher, who I felt was very brilliant, he was like, he commanded, you know, some teachers you're like, this guy was great. He knew how to help us study and how to learn things. And he took control of the classroom. And he had his stick and he's explaining the magic bullet theory.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm listening, and the diagram, remember the diagram? And I'm sitting there going, you know, this is in the 1970s. And I'm like, wow, like that seems kind of strange, but you're just indoctrinated. And it's the same thing you're saying about democracy, about how then all of a sudden it was, look, they didn't have the internet and all this stuff back when they went from, you know, for the United States of America to of the United States, like, and then one generation passes and it becomes the rule of understanding, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just we kind of do that, but I think what you're saying though is that I think those are things that are points. I believe that God was kind of putting a check mark in your brain, going, okay, I want to redress that point later on.
Yeah.
And going, hold on to that one because I'm gonna talk about it later.
Okay. Exactly. So, Stu, did you have some? Yeah, we have a bunch of questions.
We've spoke about it. I'll start 4 questions, I think. We spoke about this a little bit lately, Elisa and I. We've talked about this run up until the July the 4th date. Trump keeps talking about this is when it starts, gold loans. But we're thinking so much has got to happen in that short time that maybe we're going to see a lot of information come out, but that is going to be the start of it. And this is what Elisa was saying. But then I kept thinking 120 days NESARA, because one of the points in NESARA is that when NESARA is announced, I know you said it probably won't be a big announcement, but one of those 20 points is if NESARA is announced, there will be 120 days and then we will have fair elections in that period. Anyway, the dates between July the 4th and November the 3rd, midterms, is exactly 120 days.
Yeah.
And that just made me think, I think, are we going to get some sort of big announcement on July the 4th and get an EBS to go with it and these other things maybe beforehand, afterwards, and election fraud in the run up?
Well, I mean, that's an easy possibility. I mean, July 4th has been one area that I'm trying to remember her name. Judy Shelton's talked about for a gold-backed currency. You know, the day we're in a gold-backed currency, we're already there. Okay, so like if we're announced to a gold-backed currency, this thing's already going. So, when that happens, it's all going. So I'm just gonna say like some people look at this, and I know you're not saying that, Stewie, but this thing can go in seconds. Like this stuff is like is a domino. I mean, at the end of probably all of our favorite movies, V for Vendetta, flick the dominoes and the sucker just start flowing. This doesn't take much effort. The reality is the planning for D-Day was many months in effect. But if you realize to get onto the beaches and to get inland really didn't take that long. It was not more than a day and a half to get inland. Now, I know there were some beaches that were you got stuck a little bit, but it wasn't that long. And I've talked to some fascinating people because as an audiologist, being that way for 34 years, I would talk to these people about who actually landed on the beachheads in many different ways. And they were just amazing people. My secretary would have to pull me out of the room going, "You got another patient." But I'd had these people in that circumstance. But the reality is it will not take long, because I believe that most of these circumstances will just fall over the wayside. And so I think that we're going to see them happen very quickly. And when they occur, an EBS occurs, they're already happening. The reality is that all of us would have wished the EBS would have happened in, March of 2021, right? But the brilliance of the plan is now we're all kind of pissed off in one way or another. Frankly, I'm hearing even lefties who are just mad because they can't pay for things. And I'm not just talking about mad at Trump, but they can't pay for things. And I'm brokenhearted for them too, because the inflation, and I'm not just talking about inflation, that the official numbers for inflation, but the price of the fiat money is outrageous. I've talked about this on my channel on many ways. But did you know that from 1913 to 2020, only 20% of every dollar that was ever created, either digitally or physically, has ever been created? But from 2020 to 2025, 80% of every dollar that has ever been created has been created in that time frame. And that should make you go, what?
Wow.
We're talking like multiplicity effect. And not one economist on any one of the big channels has ever talked about that. Since 2020, the amount of currency that they've created, I mean, there's crazy amounts of currency that they created. So and right now, by the way, in the last 5 months, they're pulling out money from the Treasury, from the Fed to the Treasury, and moving money back and forth just to prop up the currency because they have nothing left. And so this thing is ready to fall in seconds. And so all it takes is just a little bit for it to go. So to answer your question, we're April 7th. Could it go at any moment? One date that is a potential date is Trump has talked about it, is the switch over to the new Fed chairman of Kevin Walsh. That's May 18.
Which is the day after he has the day of prayer on May 17th, right?
Right. So another one is June 6th, which is another weirder date that we've been hearing about. Dave with News Treason has talked a little about that one. That's another stranger date. Obviously, Judy Shelton has talked about one of the later periods of time is that July 4th. And so there's some strange points of time, but all they have to do is what occurs. And I know some people who are very much into the fear, all this has to happen is that the quantum financial system has already been going for a long time. And so it's been running in the background for a very, very long time frame. All they have to do is shut off the SWIFT system.
Right.
And the QFS has been going. Okay. So it's been spinning like a little wheel. It's already running. And so all they have to do is turn that off, and it just runs the rest of the system. It's already going. Okay. So as soon as it goes, the gold-backed system moves over into the treasury, and what happens is the rest of it just turns off.
Yeah. Drip, 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 flood.
And we can see.
If you listen to Bo Polney, he says we're going to see this all happen. God's hand will move in a day, a 24-hour period. There's going to be an awful lot going on, and we have been told it's going to be biblical.
One of the problems that Bo kind of misses, though, is that in that point is that, and I don't know if he says this exactly. I mean, I've heard some of the points, but gold will be set. I've heard people who misunderstand us. So Treasury will set the price of gold instantaneously. Okay. So, and so you will, if you thought you could run down, and I'm making up a number. And I'm not quoting the price. Okay.
20,000.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So let's just say it's 20,000. We'll use your number. So it's not Scott's number, but Stewie just set the price. Okay. So let's say it's $20,000, right? So let's just say, Scott Bassett set it at $20,000. What it means is that it is a fixed asset. That is exactly what they've done historically every single time. You can never, I don't care what you buy it for at the Denver gold, currency market place, any place you buy it for, it does not matter. So you could buy it or sell it any price you wanted to, but all you're going to get is $20,000. Okay. So you think you're going to buy it, but what you're going to do is you're going to buy it at 20K. Now you can sell it, all of your gold. I would say go for it and sell that gold and make that profit. What's the cool part is that we know for a fact, as soon as Treasury hits, and that means the Fed is done, guess what happens to Treasury? Or excuse me, the IRS? They're dead too.
Right.
And capital gains is a part of Treasury, or excuse me, of IRS. It's dead too. And I always kind of say, people ask me all the time, what about capital gains? What about this tax? What about that? I'm like, listen, when you pay taxes, who do you have to pay it to? The IRS.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You're always paying taxes to whom? You're writing a check to the IRS. Every check is written to the IRS. Okay. When I go and buy this little cup, what do? It's $20. They take out taxes, which is called sales tax, right? So that is called sales tax. Everything else other than property tax is an IRS taxation, okay? Yeah. Or income tax in the UK. With that.
So to your point about the system being, already running, there are certain things that I think we've all seen over the last couple of years, maybe last year or so. Like I know when I send money, depending on where I'm sending it now, it was 5 days, 7 days. I get a notice. This like freaked me out, you know, a couple of months ago. It's like, your money will arrive in 2 hours. And I was like, I just sent it to the Philippines. Like, you know, we're so used to them holding on to it and doing whatever the hell they do with it, right? So there's all these little tells if you're paying attention.
Yep. And so that's the other point that is coming out too. So one of the things that you know, we have this other little conversation, and I've been talking to a lot of truthers who are getting a lot of, and so I'm gonna address a conversation about crypto. So we have a lot of people who want to posit this conversation that, for instance, you know, we have these things that this particular crypto is gold backed, and that crypto is silver backed, and this one is that, and I go, here's the point. What the Fed is a private organization that ran the money. Okay. When the Fed was a private organization, just like the City of London is a private organization that was created to run the monetary system of the world, but specifically of the UK. Okay, it's the same thing that the central bank of Iraq was created to run the monetary system of Iraq. Okay, we could do that 100 times out of 100, right? But that is unconstitutional. The first article under the 10th section, the first article under the 9th section. So here's the problem when you have a specific crypto that says that they would be backed by gold, or specific crypto backed by a public sector amount of money. Well, that would be a private company utilizing a public sector amount of money. That's illegal. Okay? No. So how do you get around that? How I kind of explain that is that what cryptos are is that they are a transfer bit of information. So I want you to think about what cryptos were made to do. What cryptos are is like a little tiny thumb drive from one place to another. But they are able to transmit normally monetary amounts of money, monetary bits. Okay, so they're able to take bits of money and move it. But nowadays, the problem we struggle with right now is that if Scott wants to buy a particular crypto, and I'm just going to use like Ethereum, he has to go and take from the fiat system and spend $1,000 to buy a certain amount of Ethereum. Does it make sense? And then he has an X number of Ethereum, and then he can buy in the Ethereum and boost and gain and move around, and maybe someone sells something with Ethereum or whatever he does. The point that is going to occur is that when the SWIFT system goes away, that has been the connector between all of the systems of the world. So if anyone wants to connect a bank to a bank to a credit card to another, payment system, or for instance, I use a credit card system with my business. So when someone comes in and wants to use a credit card and they use a credit card, how do they connect it? How do they, do all that connection system? It's all the SWIFT system. So what is going to happen is you have to have a connector. That's the cryptos. And so I've talked about this 100 ways. And guess what's happened? Every time I went and did this deep research, I've had these banker people go, yes, that's exactly right. That's what's going to happen. Okay. So this has been backed up over and over again. So what happens is that the banks will then go and use it in their private way. They'll go, well, we're going to use X crypto and use a transfer mechanism. So if Stewie goes, well, I want to send Scott $100. What he's going to do, okay, so you want to send me $100? Great. Well, how is he going to send it to me? He's going to use his bank A is going to send $100, right? And he's got to be able to use a crypto, and it's going to connect. But what they are is the crypto charge is like 0.00006, and it goes like that. Where the SWIFT system in the past took like 3 days to get there. Does that make sense? And so
it makes sense, but I think we also know that they wanted to hold on to our money too. So right. So it was that plus the criminality of why it took so long. But let me ask you, and I'm by no means an expert on crypto. However, I have a little, but when it comes to things like XRP, where they have described how it's got more utility beyond just a connector, and it kind of helps, I'm going to use this expression, the rails of the system. Could you talk to that a little bit and what maybe differentiates or doesn't XRP from a lot of the other cryptos?
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. When you were discussing there, it sounded to me like you were talking about XRP. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, but it doesn't mean, see, XRP can't be the only one out there. Yeah. Because what if, let's give you an example. If I just said XRP is gold backed, what if XRP decides to be the new cabal?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, because they're owned by a whole bunch of private individuals. What if they decide to be, what if they decide to be a whole bunch of cabal idiots?
Right.
I mean, seriously, what would happen? Then they start controlling the monetary system. Well, how is that a good thing?
Right.
The answer is they need to be a secondary vendor that the banking people get to use. And if they start becoming idiots, then they get to be, then the bankers go, you know what? Screw you. I'm going to use someone else. They're just a capability. And here's the thing, good private, and by the way, you guys got to listen to The Art of a Deal by Trump. If you ever haven't listened to Art of a Deal by Trump, then you don't understand how he thinks. Because here's what he did. And if you don't, if he didn't like something, he'd get on the phone and call him up and got a better deal. If you think that XRP is the only answer, then you don't know Trump. Okay. And I'm just telling you that XRP is not the only answer. So in a free market, we have to have the capability for, and I'm not just talking about Chase Bank. Don't get me wrong here. But what about one country being held hostage by XRP? Right? Or how about one company being held hostage by XRP? I'm not saying they would, but what if they tried to do that?
Right.
And maybe they wouldn't do that today, but what if they tried to do that in the future?
We don't know. So
what if we had the option to have like 10, 12 different, competing cryptos that are fighting for, capability, competition, right? And so, they all have, good competition. And by the way, competition isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great thing. And by the way, again, listen to Art of the Deal. Trump talks about being in the biggest competition in New York City, right, Elise?
Yeah.
And in the biggest competition in the toughest market out there, like he understands it. And listen, as a competitor myself, I know what competition is about. Okay, but transparency is the best competitor out there. And so when you have that level of competition, what will happen is that they are the best one right now. Don't get me wrong, but there will still have to be a good competitor out there they have some of the best rails. But there are other ones that will probably crop up and kind of go, you know what, we're going to bite you in the butt.
Well, that makes sense. And that's, I think, how it should be. That's how we keep from having monopolies and having people get too big for their britches and getting corrupt. But I think, so maybe you could explain this. So again, from a very uneducated person when it comes to crypto, is there also limits on what gets mined? Like, for example, what I've heard, and I'm just talking XRP because I'm not in, like, I just haven't had the time to understand a lot of the other ones. However, if XRP mines a certain amount and then you own, say you just own a few, handful, and at some point there's not enough, there's not enough, or however that works, would the value of your XRP be something because there'd be a market demand for it? So that's when people are sort of hoping how the price will go up. Forget about the gold backed.
Yes. So what happens is that it'll be a publicly traded kind of thing. It already is a publicly traded amount. So Bitcoin is a mined event. It only has the ability to have, I want to say 21 million, shares capability. So that's why it's got this immense, top end. Okay. So like XRP though has the ability to like move up, its value is pretty darn low because no one's very much using it. Okay. Or XLM or any of the other competitors, right? Because right now, not many people are utilizing it. Okay. So what your value will be in the future, let's say you own X number of XRP. And what will occur down the road is that billions and billions of transactions will be utilized in XRP. Then your value is to the moon. So when people talk that way, what you're going to be making is the number of transactions that will be happening, which will make it a market value of capability of immense proportion.
Okay.
So that's the way I want you to think about it. So its capability is based upon how much people are utilizing it. And and that's the way to think about it. Whereas I believe that Bitcoin will be losing value because what people will find out in the transparency point that will come out in the near future is that, wait a second, the CIA was utilizing it. They were using it for nefarious purposes, blah, blah, blah. That will come out in the future too. Whereas now we're hearing all the scammers, and I've been trying to deal with this in a lot of ways. Scammers are telling people like QFS is a crypto. Well, it's never a crypto. The quantum financial system is not ever a crypto. The quantum financial system is a blockchain. But what the quantum financial system is, and I've been talking about this too. So I hope you don't mind if I get onto this one here. Do you guys want to know about what DOGE and QFS is?
Go ahead.
Would you guys like that? I hope you don't mind. What I've been starting to understand is the DOGE thing is the quantum financial system. What it is DOGE is understanding the depth of the quantum financial system. So when DOGE went in there, when Elon Musk went in there, is he's actually showing you the quantum financial system inside of what they've been doing. Now, what they've been doing is taking the blockchain of the Bitcoin, which Bitcoin was turned on in 2009. Mm-hmm. And the CIA and all of the sickos have been using Bitcoin because they thought they could get away with it.
Right, because it's decentralized, so they could get under the radar, so to speak.
But they didn't know that someone was watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just say to that? I watched an amazing hour from the debriefing. I don't know if you know him. He was on with Rambo and the guys, and he put it all into AI, and he basically said that Bitcoin has been used as a massive sting operation to track all these transactions of the bad guys.
Yeah. Well, guess what? It's the exact same time frame that Bitcoin was turned on. The quantum financial system was turned on at the same time. So they don't know that, but that's actually what was happening.
Well,
so,
and we're seeing the value. I'm sorry, excuse me. Like we're seeing, remember it was all the way up at 120 or whatever it was. I think it's, correct me, but I think it's like 67 or something like this.
It's coming down.
Yeah, it's coming down.
It's coming down because people are starting to realize it, and then and so people are going to get out of it, more quickly. So one of the things that's happening is that they've gone in. So DOGE is looking at the, DOGE is the quantum financial system looking at government issues. And so it is us in the quantum financial system looking at doging or going inside of the deep state and seeing what they're doing and going, screw you, we're going to find out everything you actually did. And so what's going to happen in the near future, the quantum financial system is going to privatize all of the people. But what I also believe is that, let's just say all three of us, in the near future, when we're on the quantum financial system, all three of us are all on the quantum financial system. But let's just say Scott decides to open up the Phoenix Fencing Company. And you're like, okay. And you guys are still, out there, doing your show. But Scott decides to do the Phoenix Fencing Company, and he's working for the Phoenix city government. And he gets a $200,000 contract, right? And he's getting it's a government contract. Now, as long as Scott is a private contractor for everything else, he's totally private for everything else he's doing. But as soon as he gets government money, that is now seen by everyone. That monies that he gets from the government thing is now visible to everyone else. So if he starts doing like idiotic things, everyone gets to see the idiotic $200,000 things he starts doing. No, you guys can't see anything else I'm doing, but you get to see every idiotic thing I start doing inside of there. And you get to start calling me out for the idiotic things. So the quantum financial system will be visible on a governmental level, but invisible from the personal level.
Yeah.
How cool will that be?
Cool. Can I just ask you, is your fencing company for putting borders around gardens or on guard?
Exactly. I don't know. We'll see what I do on that one. I mean, I have no building capability, but you get the idea.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, just want to. I've started a few questions going back through the chat. It's great when you start them because they're easy to see. This is a bit off topic, really. What does Scott think of J.D. Vance saying aliens are demons?
It's kind of my viewpoint. I mean, listen, I mean, we know if you go back through biblical, history, the biblical viewpoint is that demons came down and mated with women and created Nephilim. And that's what the giants were.
Yeah.
Or Nephilim. Sorry, I say it wrong. So that's what those are. And so, one of the most fascinating things that you kind of realize, did you know that in the deep underground military bases, the DUMBs, did you know that doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you are the grays or the whites, you cannot say the name of Jesus in those deep underground military bases, even if you're saying it in a cuss word.
I did not know that, but we did have a guest on who's a survivor of SRA, and she was explaining how they beat the idea of Jesus out of you, and right, and that those kids, to her experience and others, felt Jesus's presence through what they went through. And then later, as they came, their memories came back. And of course, I'm oversimplifying, but they were healed or whatever through Jesus, and reuniting with him. So I never heard what you said, but it makes sense.
They're not allowed to say the name of Jesus. I mean,
now what happens if they do? I don't.
They're just told. I mean, they sign a deal, a statement that they're not allowed to say it even as a cuss word, like as a statement. That's just fascinating, kind of point. So, what is occurring down there? I mean, I think that they're interacting in that way, which is my kind of viewpoint. It's when I've kind of done some, deep kind of statements out there, deep kind of research on aliens, that's kind of been my viewpoint on alien kind of issues is where I lean in that kind of direction.
No, that's interesting, because I've heard stories about people seeing UFOs and things and asking them to go away in Jesus' name. And every time, and I've been doing this about a year, if my ears start really ringing, I say, please go away in the name of Jesus. And it just stops.
Yep, I agree. That's where I go. So
Badger Box, another one there. So what about the fiat money system? But that is pretty much SWIFT, isn't it?
Yeah. So the fiat, one of the cool things about this, and this is where the fear mongers get off on, is that, they're always like, oh my gosh, my fiat money goes away. What's going to happen? So here's what occurs is the gold-backed currency comes on, the fiat money goes away. But what happens when and I'm just reaching in my drawer here. So what if I got money in, cash, in my drawers? So like as a business owner, people are going to have cash, it's not going to be a big deal. Okay. Listen, it's going to be like, 4 to 6 months down the road, people are going to come in. I got a bag, I have a bank bag. What's going to happen for me is they're going to come in and they're going to buy a book. They're going to buy something with cash. I'm going to take it down to the bank. They're going to realize it. It's going to be brought in with cash, and they're just going to deposit it. You're going to walk into the bank with cash, and you're going to, they're going to change it out. Here's the cool one. If you walked into the bank and you walked in with a pallet of millions and millions of dollars, they're going to ask you a question like, wait a second, how come you have millions and millions of dollars? And they're going to know that you're probably a cartel or something like that. And they're going to arrest you on the spot, because that's the only ones. And by the way, it's one of the easiest fixes to knock out all the cartels, because they all operate in cash. I mean, like, you can go watch like the second season of Reacher. You can watch a bunch of these series that actually, you want to fix all of the drug running and all these other things on the lower rungs of the problems. You flip the currency, you will fix so much of all the systems of problems on the local levels, the county, the state levels of every region, just by flipping into a new currency. And you do that in every single place. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're going to Iran, you're going to Iraq, you do it in the UK, you do it in America.
Yeah. Excellent. Kate said, can you ask Scott if I can claim my social security? Now, I know Kate lives in Scotland, but she used to live in America for 30 years.
Not sure if I know what I mean. Claim my social security. In what way? What are we saying there?
You can retype in more detail in the comments page. Still there.
Explain what that means. I'm not sure I'm following you there.
Okay, this is obviously going to Iran. Trump said a whole civilization will die tonight. He speaks in code. What does he mean?
I'm working on that right now, but I'm going to tell you what I believe he's talking about. He's talking about what civilization? The Iran, how do I say, the
not Persia,
Islam stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing this conversation, and I'm watching. I don't watch long videos. I watch very short ones because you just said the key word. Lots of those people are saying, I'm Persian. I'm not Muslim. I'm Persian. And these people love saying, I'm Persian. Don't call me that. And by the way, can I just give you a really cool thing? What if Iran goes back to the old name of calling themselves Persia?
Amazing.
It would actually fulfill Ezekiel 38:5. How cool would that be?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. We're seeing lots of videos come out of Iran of people saying we've been under slavery for 47 years. It was put upon us, and you've only got to look at Iran before sort of 1979, 1978. All the ladies are walking about. They're not wearing these burqas and
that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the civilization of the Sharia law, the disgusting level of that. That's what he's getting into. And so if you listen to it, he says, I love the people of Iran. So people don't like read. I'm not saying you guys. You got to read the whole paragraph in there.
Yeah, amazing. Badger Brock said things are hotting up in Dublin. The island farmers and truckers are closest city, and it will be here soon in the UK. Fuel shortage. Now we've all had a stock up of food for a long time, ready for these sort of times, but.
The Dublin farmers, man, I tell you what, that is, they have been deep in my heart for a hugely long time. And listen, I mean, I'm not even from the area. I'm not in that area, but they have been on my heart for a super long time frame. Every time I think about them, I don't even know why. I'm just telling you, it has been super deep on my heart because I believe, oops, sorry, something happened to my StreamYard there. I believe personally that they are screaming out at the UK government, the Ireland government, saying no more, and they have been harmed in every way, shape, and form. And so I'm seeing this all over the place. That Q actually states over and over again they'll never be able to walk in public anymore. And this kind of stuff is happening everywhere. They walk out in public and they're getting screamed down. Even just silly little things. There's a recent video with Chris Cuomo. He's talking about his idiotic statements that he made about ivermectin. And he's just in a studio audience, and he can't even get through his own comments about his moronic statements about ivermectin. These people have no way to be in public anymore because everyone knows their idiocy.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah, Kate said, "What if someone hasn't got any crypto?" Simple question.
Listen, what if you don't have silver, crypto, or anything? I'm going to tell you that, let's say you have no money and capability. I'm going to tell you that what we're going to see is the Social Security, your capabilities are going to instantly improve. So the debts are going to get wiped away. I can prove that in 100 different ways. So you're going to see your debts wiped away. You're going to see your whatever money that you have in your accounts are going to be going gold backed. You're going to see the IRS wiping away Don't worry about it. Don't look backward. Start looking forward. You're going to see all kinds of things improving dramatically. And secondly, you're going to see all kinds of the prices of things drop. See, when we go from a fiat currency that where the value of the currency is worthless, prices are massive. But when the value of the currency is massive, prices go down dramatically. So I would say, for instance, housing will go down by a third to a half.
Wow.
The prices of everything will be dropping in the next 6 months of the time frame when that thing flips. I mean, it will make your head spin. Whereas, for instance, now things that have a cost of good, it will take time because obviously the good has to be all the cost that goes into it, like a car. You have to have all the goods that go down. It has to go down for a ways, and then so you want to wait, maybe 6 months to a year before that goes down. But you'll see it go down dramatically. Always happens that way.
Yeah.
So what you're really saying is, if you don't have funds to get crypto, or you haven't invested in silver, any of these things,
Don't worry about it.
That's not anything to worry about, because the abundance is going to come in all these other ways.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think the people that have got these things are going to have a little bit of a bonus to it. Where we go one, we go all means all people, doesn't it? You're not going to, only the people with crypto are going to be all right. Only the people with gold and silver are going to be all right.
Right.
No.
Don't worry about things that you can't control. I mean, I've never sat around worried about things that I can't figure out. I can't worry about. I got to sit where I am right now. I got to focus on the things that I can only worry about right now. So, one of the things that I've always I learned a long time ago is that I get up at 3:30 and 4:30 every single morning, and I get up and I have, a water. I have, I'll get up and have a coffee. I never bring up my phone. I never bring my iPad. I'm in the dark and I'm in prayer for, good 30 minutes or more. And I don't turn anything else on. And it's just because I got to clear out the crud. Because there's just so much stuff attacking us all the time. And so many people have so much junk going on in their brain with all the things that are happening. And you just, and so many times you go, well, I don't even know what I'm going to pray about. You know what? Just shut up.
Yeah.
And you go, and you know what happens? You know how much God is talking to you? You go like, I don't know if I'm going to ever, God never talks to me. I'm like, well, then just shut up and start listening.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I always say you don't even know how to listen to someone. Like let's say I don't understand someone's accent. The longer that I listen to that person with the accent, then I would start really keying in on the accent. Did you know that as a person who studied language quite a bit, what happens is you don't memorize exact portions of language. As in your mind, what you actually do is you have just general viewpoints of words. You never actually say a word and you say it exactly right phonetically. You have a general viewpoint of how that word comes out. So what you do is you just have a better overall viewpoint of what that is. If you'll just be quiet, and you'll be quiet, it says, be still and know that I am God. What you will do is you'll start being quiet long enough and God then starts speaking. And I mean, like right now, God just, and he doesn't always speak right then. And then during the day, he's like yapping at me. And I'm like, okay, got it. And he's like talking to me all about stuff. Do you know what he does? He tells me, like, remember, you got to pay the Capital One bill. I have totally forgotten to pay a bill. Like completely forgotten to pay a bill. I didn't have it written down anywhere. And he told me to forgot to pay a bill that I've forgotten about. Like, is that not nuts?
No, it's also the idea, like Stu and I talk about this all the time, and of course many people do, just numbers. Like the way God speaks to us in numbers and synchronicities and things that normally, I guess more 3D people say, oh, it's coincidence. There's no coincidences because there's always communication. As a life coach, I tell my clients meditate and they're like, oh, I don't have time. I'm like, do you stop at a red light? Yeah. I said,
Dude.
just breathe in, do some deep breaths. Just like let everything, not think about anything for a minute. It's powerful. Stop every half hour at work, set an alarm, get up, breathe, just focus on the breath. Like you'd be surprised how it just resets your whole body and your brain. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
beautiful what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, I got up this morning, I turned the computer straight on and I was straight at it. Had 2 or 3 coffees, had my vitamins and all that. But then I went out and did a 40k bike ride. And
There you go.
It was just me and the universe and God and the animals and the birds. And that's where I go to get away from the crud and chill and connect.
Yeah, amen. I mean, that's when the wind's smacking you in the face. That's the kind of thing. Whatever that is, wherever that time frame is, man, I tell you what, don't get in the way of messing with my time in the morning, man. You're gonna piss me off. And because that's important for us to have that kind of time frame, and so you need that time frame to be able to do that. And you're going to desire it every day. And that has driven me to be able to accomplish that. And what it does is it focuses you toward your future with that.
Yeah. Any more questions, Stu?
Well, I've just got 2 quick ones. I mean, we've done. Oh no, James just asked about. I see something on Facebook. The toll roads are going away now. They are using toll roads in Texas, or they were. Now, Derek Johnson was talking to us yesterday, wasn't he? Saying something about the tolls that were disappearing. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't heard it. I mean, I know one thing that's happening is that all of the states are challenging property tax. And now remember, Trump cannot do anything about property tax. States have to deal with this. Okay. So you're going to see property taxes getting challenged in the state levels. Now, sales tax cannot go away. Now, I do think sales tax, maybe can come down a little bit, but I'm not worried about. You're never going to have to worry about. Do not complain about sales tax, because 90% of what has to accomplish, what pays for your state, accomplishes in the sales tax. So don't ever worry about that stuff. Property tax is just a boondoggle, needs to go away. Tolls, it depends on what tolls are. Some people say, well, we build those roads. I would say, maybe. I mean, some tolls, I don't know. Depends on where you're talking about. I'd have to look at them, because I've actually done a deep dive on some level of some tolls possible, but I don't know exactly.
Yeah, and it depends. Like, I think if I'm right, at least here in New York, we had the toll decades ago, right, to pay for the bridge. Okay, so now if you come to New York, it's a small fortune to go over our bridges.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the question. I'm sure we paid this off a long time ago. The other question I want to interject here, because tolls kind of connected. What's the deal with these speed traps and red light? They are so horrible, because you're going to come to a dead, like, how do you do that? How do you stay under 25 miles? And then if you're inching up and it's green, you're about to go, but it switches because it's like green, yellow, red. And then you get snagged. I got them piled up.
Some of that is AI. Now, one of the things that we're going to start seeing too is that we're going to start seeing when the quantum financial system occurs, you're going to see a lot of challenging when you see in private. Okay. So when we got to move into this private space, I want you to think about this is that we have AI pricing, right? I mean, we've already seen some of this stuff. Is that like if you buy a plane ticket, you'll see pricing, and if you buy it on a Wednesday versus a Saturday, the same exact idiot ticket is way more expensive one day versus another. And so some, I mean, like I'm blanking out the Airbnb uses like AI pricing, dynamic level pricing. And so I think that we're going to start seeing people challenging the levels of pricing, and that level of idiot stuff where they're messing with stoplights and you know, all the camera things is going to get challenged more in the court systems. And so, you know, wait a second, you're looking in on me. Did you, if you remember, there was a listen, I didn't watch the Super Bowl, but there was a Super Bowl ad that they were in the Super Bowl ad, and I heard about the thing that they could look out with Ring doorbell, and it said that they could find, you know, wandering dogs, and there was a big backlash. Wait a second, you're recording my Ring doorbell? That
Wow.
Ring was actually doing this. So and then Ring came out and said, wait a second, we're not only doing this for dogs. And I'm like, yeah, right, I don't think so.
Right.
So one of the things that's going to be hitting is like, wait, what are we doing here? So I think what's going to happen is as soon as the quantum financial system comes in, we're going to see a lot of privatization occurring and saying, you're not going to be able to do that. And so the other thing that's going to happen is that when we see 2-term limits occurring as well in all the congressional or all the governmental spaces, we're going to see people who are going to go in and going, I'm taking that law on, we're going to knock you out. So we're going to see people going, I'm taking that out. And I talk to people all the time. You need to be going into state senates, into mayor races, and wiping these laws out in everywhere you go. And so I tell people all the time, your job, you know, maybe my job isn't to be, you know, isn't to be in the city races and the mayor races or, you know, any of those races. Your job is to be the mayor. Your job is to be the senator or whatever that is to be going and taking out those kinds of idiot laws that they've been doing.
Yeah. Well, and there was this really great scam. I just got a $250 ticket. I was driving, you know, side streets, neighborhood, and there was a bus stop. The lights were off. It was stopped. There was no stop sign, right? I'm not going to run past a bus when kids, and they have a camera. You could see the picture, and for passing that, and I'm like, there is no way I am going to pay this. There's no way, because I did not break the law. And these are the kinds of things, though, to your point, they have a camera, a ring, whatever the hell they call it, that is just, it's just automatic.
See, that's the kind of stuff that we need to challenge, you know, and I'm you know, I could tell you a longer story with this stuff. When we start challenging them, challenging the government and saying, prove it.
Yeah.
You know, prove it. And they're going to try to say, you know, try to show the video evidence and say, no, you know, you violated my rights. And so they're going to go, you know, after a while, they're going to say, nope, we're not allowed to video you.
Right.
Then that's where it's going to kind of come out. And that, I think it's going to have to happen on the back end of the QFS.
Yeah. Good point.
Cool. Well, I've just got 2 quick questions. How do you think they are, the White Hat Military Q Alliance, are using this Iran situation in the saving Israel for last?
Well, I wish I knew where the Israel for last is coming from. I would love to know that, because I'm still kind of sussing that one out. I kind of feel like I'm still playing around with JD Vance talked about Iran, and there's an economic point out there. He just did a video. I've got it on. I have this big long screen right here. My son set it all up for me, right? And I've right over to the left of my screen, I've got like lines of videos, right? And sometimes I've got PowerPoints and lines of videos, and it's one of my videos. And so I'm going to be doing a video about Iran. I just don't know exactly what. And he started to say something about Iran and economic issues. I believe this. I'm going to give you a little hint. The end of the Iran war, I think, is incredibly soon. And he intimated that if the Iran war is over, there's an economic front that comes. And I'm like, what? Like something's happening with that. Now, does Israel, I mean, Israel's been a part of it, right? So, I mean, we're not like talking about Taiwan or anything else that doesn't have anything to do with Israel, right? So does that include the Iranian issue? Like, I mean, or excuse me, Israel issue with Iran. So I'm like, I don't know how to do that connection there. So I'm trying to figure that out fully. Yeah. And I haven't done the bridge very well yet.
Yeah, cool. And just lastly for me, what is your message to the black pillars, the panicans, the doom and gloomers, and the nothing is happening crowd?
I just, every time I do that, at first, I used to like deal with them and try to, try to do that. But, I've been learning a new story with them. When I talk to black pillars, at first I didn't even know what the term was. This is probably about a year ago. I was like, black pillar. I didn't know what the word was. Like my wife had to my wife is incredibly awakened. I love her to death. We've been married for 33 years. And so and she's completely involved in the business and completely involved in ministry stuff. And still we talk all the time. I mean, we work together, we talk together. We're never apart. Right. And so she had to explain it to me because I'm like, I must be stupid on that stuff. And so I heard it and I'm like, why do you have to be that that caustic? Right. Because I'm a glass half full kind of guy. Here's what happens is that, I want to try to get them to fill up their cup a little bit. Right. And I think a lot of us want to do that. But what I have found is that they just want to empty your cup. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And I'm just like, I don't do it anymore. So by the way, I'm going to be in, Open the Heavens event. And I just decided, and this might be the dumbest thing in the history of the world, but I'm going to do a Q&A. The whole thing is going to be, my thing is going to be a Q&A. So I'm probably ready for the pot shot event. Okay. Open Q&A. So that's whatever. But here's the point. When people do this, the first thing that you need to do when you have friends over and they black pill in front of your face is I want you to do this. Breathe and say, why do you feel that way? And say, wait, say that again. I mean, seriously, and just, wait, say that again. Now, most of the time, they're going to if they repeat that word, that phrase again, they're so, I don't know how, they're so caustic and so unthinking that they will they're just like throwing up over the world. You know, they just love to do that to everyone. But most people will like realize how stupid it is, especially if they do it like in front of a group of people.
Yeah.
So make them, you know, if they do that like really gross thing, and especially if it's directed at you, like you go, I give them a really kind of a like you just gave me a like a really disgusting thing, and go, wait, say that again.
I love that, Dr. Scott, because that's sort of like a therapeutic reflecting back on them. And most of us, when people black pill us, we start to go into defense mode, right? Well, you know, you got the, but if you let them, I guarantee if we all try that in the next week, first of all, half of them probably won't even know what they're going to trail off because they're not going to be able to continue with their negativity.
Right. But ask them like, well, why do you feel that way? And then ask them and make them defend their own opinion. Like, and then like, and here's the other thing too. When they start going off on the thing, I don't go like this. I'm like, okay, well, fine.
Yeah. I don't really engage now. I give them some information. I ask them a question that I know they cannot answer unless they go and look into it.
But see, I don't even give them any information anymore. I don't give them anything because they're not wanting information. They don't want information.
Nope.
I give them no information, especially when they start off with like a baseball bat in my face. So I don't give them anything. Like I first off want them to say the lunacy to me again. And I want to see if they're just going to be that much of a jerk. And so I want to see if they're going to say that. And then I start to like question it. And so you do have to prepare yourself, and you have to like, shove down the bile a little bit, and you kind of have to be prepared. You do have to prepare yourself a little bit, and then, and what you'll find though, and by the way, you can actually go, if you watch a little bit, there's some old Charlie Kirk videos, and he does that. I mean, he's talking to these people, and you watch, if you don't like Charlie Kirk, it's fine. Just watch anyone like that. I mean, that they're talking about different people. And you don't have to do it, Charlie, but there's a whole bunch of people who do this. They talk to people who are very much against them. And just watch how they do it. And they ask a few questions, and what they will do is you'll see that kind of thing, and you'll realize that most of them don't know what they're talking about. They don't have enough information about what they feel, and they're just going off. And even if they have enough information, what they want to do is break you. And when they realize they can't break you, if they really want information, what they do is they come to you with like, hey man, I'm really struggling. And if they come out with anger and they turn it down several notches, I'm like, hey man, that's a really good point. I haven't thought about it. Like, I'm gonna leave you with this little point. So like I had, when I was talking about end time issues, it's eschatology, and my partner, who I wrote a 2-part series on end time issues called Foretold. We purposefully never said Billy Joe said this and Jimmy Bob said that. We said we could quote scripture like nobody's business, right? We knew. I mean, he knew like 1,000 different verses that said this and that and that, and then I knew most of them too at the time. And so we would say, well, this one says this one says that, so we were, placing them in there. And so we were talking about the facts. So if someone wants to engage with me, the facts, I'd be like, man, I don't know that. That's a good point. And you said that to me, right? You were like, well, what about Israel? I'm like, dude, I don't know that one. And so when someone comes with like a point, I'm like, I don't know that yet. I'm still like sussing that one out. how do you feel about when someone says, I'm sussing that one out? You're like, I like you.
Yeah. I mean, most people like that are basically they're a lack of research, a lack of faith, and they're potentially still living in fear a bit. And I've asked quite a few of our guests that question, but the last person I asked before you was Ricardo Bosi, and I asked him that, and he sat back and he went, "Nothing. I do nothing now."
Yeah. We've all been called the Antichrist and every other thing anymore, and. On YouTube, I learned a long time ago, there's like three little dots, like three little vertical dots. And I learned a long time ago, I click on that and hide them from the channel, because I don't want to see them anymore, because why do you want to be on my channel and, like attack me? I'm like, dude, get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
we've had a few of that lately. Rumble is brilliant, they're all amazing, but YouTube, we get a few people coming from there just talking crap, don't we? But we just think,
get out. I mean, go away. What do you care? I mean, I don't walk in. I mean, I'll use an NFL thing. I don't walk into into Pittsburgh, and I don't walk into the bar and there are a whole bunch of Pittsburgh Steelers fans and go, I hate Pittsburgh. Like what?
Right.
That's stupid. I would never do that. Like I walk in, I'm a Denver Bronco fan. I walk in there and I go, we will talk about things that we, like about our teams. And I find things that are something to come together. I don't do the stupid thing of going against them. We find, commonalities. And like there was a patient that wouldn't see me because I was a Denver Bronco fan and he was an Oakland Raider fan. And finally he realized, he was like, do you know that like in the 77 AFC championship, Rob Lytle fumbled? And I said, yeah, I know he did. And it's like, I don't know this off the top, but that's the point. I was like, yeah, I know he did. I've watched the game. I remember he fumbled. And after that, the guy loved me, because of, I admitted the fact. I can't do anything about he fumbled. What do you want me to do? You hate my guts because he fumbled? Because I'm a fan? I mean, I can't go back and fix the game. So you see that when I did that in transparency, the guy was like, man, you're the best person in the world. Well, because I told you the truth.
Right. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's perfect. That is. I've asked a lot of people that. I'm not going to ask anyone else anymore. I'm going to clip your bit, put it on the end of that compilation, and that's enough. No more conversations with the black pillars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Dr. Scott. That's been
great.
Absolutely amazing. You're welcome back on anytime as things escalate. And hold on to your hats, people. I think we're in for some more amazing times. And it might get a bit turbulent or scary in the meantime, but live in love and not fear, and we'll be all right, won't we?
Right. And I definitely know the EBS is coming, guys, because the whole world's got to know the truth. EBS is going to come because the world needs to see the reality. And it's not going to be a scary thing. It's going to be a good thing. You guys are going to already know the truth, but I want you to focus on the cool things that are happening. Focus on the truth and the future.
Okay, just one more thing then. Are we going to see JFK Jr. again?
I don't know. I would love to know what was happening with him, but I'm going to be focusing on the future. I'm going to be focusing on, like the deaths being wiped out. I'm going to be focusing on the fun things that are happening out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Great note to end on. Thank you so much. And we hope to have you back on here again, and have a wonderful time at your event that you're going to be speaking at in May.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone in the chat. We love you. Where we go, when we go all. And we'll see you tomorrow from Matt Geiger. Cheers.
Make sure you're watching Stu's News and Patriots Across the Pond for some of your awakening information. Amazing guests every week from Monday to Saturday. Visit patriotsacrossthepond.com and follow Stewie and Elisa today on Rumble for the live shows. And remember, where we go one, we go all.
flooded with noise. Clarity has become rare. People are questioning what they're told and searching for something real. Mr. Heal's modern wellness meets old school remedies. CBD tinctures, methylene blue, gummies and edibles, THC-free wellness, and functional remedies crafted with old school care and modern precision. Biozox, a trusted source for ivermectin and fenbendazole. Biozox, believe your health decisions should be yours, not dictated by politicians or big pharma. Crafted with purpose and precision, freedom forged coffee, cacao and mushroom tinctures, small batch roasted coffee, rich cacao and functional mushrooms crafted with purpose. Verity Metals, redefining what precious metals investing should be. Why choose Verity Metals? We're not just another gold dealer. We're a trusted retirement partner. Our clients choose us because we lead with education, integrity, and transparency. Medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States, accounting for 66.5% of bankruptcies. We can all agree the healthcare system is broken. There is an alternative: impact health sharing, which Yahoo News is calling the disruptor in the $4.6 trillion healthcare system. For more information, visit patriotsacrossthepond.com.